Okay, we are live on Proline TV. Thanks for tuning in. I am sitting in currently for Mark Lawrence. Hopefully, he'll be joining us real shortly. This is the Playbook ATS podcast every Thursday right here. Normally, we get started at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Pacific. But again, we're just holding out hope that we'll be hooking up with Mark here real shortly. In the meantime, welcome in our illustrious panel, as usual. Starting with Jim Feist, jimfeist.com. How's it going, Jim?
Pretty good today. Actually feeling pretty good. Got rid of at least I've got rid of most of my coughing. And that's been lingering. One of these things where people tell me that they get it, keep it for 6-7 weeks. I said, oh my God.
Yeah.
I had it for 3 weeks and I still might have a little bit of it. And damn, it just doesn't go away.
Well, good. That's good. Excellent that you're in that shape then, because you wouldn't want to. It's sort of like that's how I felt after the hurricane last year when I was lucky enough to move. I was supposed to move a couple of days before, actually, just about when the hurricane hit. I was supposed to move like 2 to 3 days later. So that got postponed for about a week. But I only had to deal with it for a week. And I came into the new home and we had electric and I was okay. And I didn't find out until about a few months later when we went back to the house and we saw the landlord who lived across the street. He said that he did not get his electric on until a month after.
Oh my.
And that was like, I could not even imagine being in that situation for a month. I just couldn't. So
a month, after a few hours, it gets to you.
Yes. And just imagine, I had to go down to the lake, not the lake, but it was like a stream in the bottom of our hill. And I had to go down there with a bucket to get water for the toilet. So I had to do that just for a couple of days. And I couldn't imagine doing that for an entire month. I just couldn't. So
yeah,
I hear you.
We're going back into the 1800s.
I was just going to say, it's a good thing we weren't around in 1840.
Yeah, we wouldn't
that
survive.
Was routine back then, yeah.
Yeah. Andy Isko, thelogicalapproach.com. How's it going, Andy?
It is going fine. Beautiful day out here today. We've had a lot of rain, Jim, haven't we, over the last 2 to 3 weeks, which is unusual for this time of year, but it's been beautiful the last couple of days. We had a little bit of rain yesterday, and waiting for some of these games to start. We're getting into, I can't believe we're basically halfway through the season.
Boy, I hate to hear that. I hate to have it go so fast.
Yeah.
But, we started the NBA season. We got the NHL going on. College basketball is going to start in a couple of days.
Speaking of basketball,
and we have Friday starts the World Series.
Yeah.
Speaking of basketball, and that's obviously this is not a basketball podcast, but we can still talk a little bit about it when it concerns the industry. So what's going on, Jim?
I haven't had time to read it because I was doing podcasts and I saw this flash that NBA players and coach and player was arrested for a gambling thing. It's going on, and because the NBA just started 2 days ago. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I did know the one name came up that I did see, Chauncey Billups. So there's something going on, and it sounds bad.
Yeah, in fact, I'm just taking a look at the headline. Billups and Rozier, the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers and a player for the Miami Heat, were arrested Thursday along with more than 30 other people in 2 criminal cases alleging sprawling separate schemes to rake in millions by rigging sports bets and poker games involving mafia families, authorities said. Portland coach Chauncey Billups was charged. Fixed high-stakes cards games in Las Vegas, Miami, Manhattan, and the Hamptons. Blah, blah, blah. Heat guard Terry Rozier was accused in a second scheme, blah, blah, blah. That's just reading that right now from one of the wire services.
Oh, boy.
Not good.
When you've been obviously in the industry for a very long time, Jim, what do you see as the difference between what you used to hear in 30, 40 years ago regarding point shaving and things of that nature compared to what we're hearing today? Anything different?
Yeah, it's very different and it's much worse.
The numbers are much larger.
The problem is they opened this thing up when they legalized everything. Now you have kids, families, people that really don't have a lot, and they're looking for an easy way to make money. And they get to these kids, and there's no way to watch everything. You can catch it after the fact because they usually get too greedy and they catch them. In the old days, it was like if you try to rip off a bookmaker, somebody might come after you with a baseball bat. But today, when you have the DraftKings and the FanDuels and stuff like that, those kind of things won't happen. But it's going to be more common. We have to rein this back in. You can't allow stuff to start. I mean, you can't allow these kids, and I'm talking about kids, you got to be, if you have to be 21 years old to do something, you got to put a limit on this, and you got to put a limit on it fast. Now, why does a guy like Rozier or Billups, with all the money they have or have made, I don't know if they have it, because a lot of people lose money too. Why would they get involved in this, and how big is it? And poker is a whole different issue. I mean, yes, there have been poker schemes for a long time where collusion at a table where there's two players playing, they're pooling their money, but nobody knows they're doing it, and they pinch one guy. So the one guy might make a bet, this guy will raise him, and this guy will raise him, and they'll raise him out of the pot, or they'll, it's just, that's
You're talking about a poker contest like in Vegas or something?
It won't happen too much it won't happen too much in tournaments, but it happens in cash games.
Yeah.
And it's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous situation. And if you do it in home games, there's nobody policing you at all. It's happening, and the unsuspecting player that's getting ripped off is there's no recourse. If it happens in a casino, there's security and there's monitoring,
surveillance,
but not. It's a very dangerous situation to play a cash game with a lot of people that you don't know for big money, because you could potentially get really burned.
So in any of those situations, I'm assuming that just because the old adage is, just because you hear about one arrest or two arrests usually means that you're not hearing about a bunch of others that you didn't find out about.
Oh, so absolutely. If they're arresting 30 people, and if it's legitimate, and I mean, a lot of people get charged with stuff that's not legitimate, but if it's legitimate, there's probably 3,000 or 30,000. You got to remember that there's so many states now where they have legalized gambling and sports gambling, and there's no way to police the kids in college about point shaving and all that. I mean, it's just, and then of course the pros. It's very easy for a professional player to say, okay, I see the line on me tonight is 30 points. I'm going to score 30. Well, I'm going to make sure I only score 25 or 26. So let's bet under on my prop.
Sure.
So they're going to have to stop the prop betting on players. It's going to have to totally be eliminated.
Yeah. Did you? I don't know. I don't think you guys did, because why would you? But there was there was a play in the UCLA Maryland game, I think it was, and I think it was the second half, because that's usually what I'll do. I don't watch all of these games, but I try to watch when it's a close game. I try to watch the end of the game to see what's going on. I was watching the game, and there was this holding call or a clipping call on this player. And obviously, everybody's going crazy. How can you make that call? But you knew it was really bad when the announcer said it. The announcer said, "I can't believe that is the worst call I've ever seen in my entire life." And they showed the replay. The kid was like 5 feet away from the player where the official called clipping. And then you looked at the sideline, because they're trying to figure out, because there was the players were really getting like into the face of they were getting real mad. You go, why? Who are they? And trying to find out what they're going after as far as the official. And you could tell, okay, well, there it is. I see the coach, and I see, there's the official. It was a black woman. And you could tell she was trying to explain herself. I was trying to read her lips, and it sounded like she's apologized twice for it. She was trying to explain why she didn't see it. and the coach skipper for UCLA wasn't really getting into it with her. And I think it was one of those things was because she was a woman. Again, I'm just from what I said, I think it was because she was a woman. He just didn't want to. You wanted to get the players out of the way. It's calm down. But it was such a terrible call. And I'm not blaming her for being, guilty of doing anything or just being really bad, or she missed it. But the problem was, it was like, well, if you missed it that bad and you admit it, and I can see that you're apologizing, and everybody in the world knows that you just completely missed it, then why didn't you change the call?
Yeah.
We've seen it. We see it. I'm a pro guy. I watch pro games all the time. I don't watch so many. But then basketball, of course, I do watch that. But we've seen some terrible calls over the years, made and not made.
Didn't they come out the other day and suspend that SEC official who botched that call in the Auburn-Georgia game a couple of weeks ago? He's been permanently suspended or something like that.
Permanently suspended.
Yeah, that's the phrase they use. Fired.
Basically, that means he was fired.
Yeah, but I mean, and apparently that was the one where it appeared very clear that the Auburn player had the ball cross the goal line, and they reviewed it and they said no, he didn't, and it was a critical moment in the game. They would have been up 17-0, and we see that come up very often, more often in recent years than I can remember, where officials 2 to 3 days after the game, conference officials, whatever, admit that the calls were wrong.
All right, so here it is. I found it. It was so bad, I figured it would be on social media somewhere. All right, so if you can see this is the play. Okay, so right there, you see you're looking for, I think it's the guy right behind him that they called it on. The guy that's doing nothing, he's just walking. So now here it is. Here's the play. So they're going to call a clip, and there's no clip. The guy didn't do nothing. So now also... now look at this. See, here's the point where the players are trying to get into the face. They're trying to. Now here she is. That's the official. She's trying to explain to herself what's going on. He's trying to be calm about it. Not get involved. But I'm telling you, look. I mean, there was no. The player just lunged, and she called a clipping because the player lunged and fell on the ground. And that was a big play because the guy got like 25 yards or something like that. It's just incredible. So I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm not really in for this. I don't really like having women officials myself, but even men can be pretty bad at times. So I don't necessarily want to point at women when they do it. But what I will say is if they make a mistake, hey, you got to get in their faces just like you would a man. And if you can't get in their face just because they're a woman, then that's your problem. Because that's what it looked like to me. That he didn't want to get in her face because she's a woman. So, but anyway, let's move on. Let's talk NFL. And I know since we usually get the information from Mark, I'm going to instead leave it up to let's go first with you, Andy. Give us a game that you like this week so we can talk about. What do you like? Give us a game that intrigues you in the NFL this week.
Well, we can start with the first one on Sunday. Cincinnati favored by about 6.5 at home against the 0-7 New York Jets, who I guess it must have been a Christmas wish that Woody Stevens, the owner, was talking about the other day. He said, "I'd feel really good if we could complete a pass."
Yeah.
A little dig at the quarterback, at the offense, standing behind the coach. But it's an intriguing matchup because you have to. Well, it's an intriguing game because you have to think that perhaps with Joe Flacco in there now for Cincinnati, the Bengals have new life. Browning was just terrible, and the Bengals have an opportunity to, before their bye week, they could get up 4 and 5 or 5 and 4, something they could be. And when you take a look at the division, I'm not going to rule Baltimore out right now as far as their prospects for the playoffs, but they need to come out of their bye this week against who is it? They play, I think, Chicago, and show that they've made this, that they're getting healthy. Cleveland, you figure, is not going to be a factor. So the AFC North could come down to Pittsburgh and Cincinnati already has that win over Pittsburgh. And keep in mind what Joe Flacco did. He got traded, I forget, I think it was like on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. He had like 4 days of practice before that first game when they played Green Bay, I think it was. Yeah, Green Bay beat him, I think, 27-18. That was Flacco's first game. So he played that game, played okay. Then he had 4 days to prepare for the second game where they played Pittsburgh on last Thursday night. Okay, so he's had very limited time, and now they have that extra time because they played Thursday night to get even more familiar with Higgins and what he prefers to do and Chase prefers to do as far as the game plan goes. So Flacco's had additional time to get familiar with his new teammates after really having only had 3 or 4 days to prepare for the first 2 games. So we may see Cincinnati start to get on a little bit of run. Now, of course, you still have the concerns on the defense, but the defense right now is not very good, but it's not as horrible as it was last year when it was just almost like historically bad. And now that you have an offense under Flacco that, at least for the 2 games we've seen, can be productive, it takes some pressure off the defense because they're not going to be on the field after all the 3 and outs that they would have under Browning before. So it's an intriguing game, and you wonder what the Jets' mindset is coming into this game, especially with the comments from the owner and how divisive is that in the locker room, etc. And who knows what happened. Tyrod Taylor, he came in relief in the second half last week, and Fields, I don't think, took very kindly to that, even though obviously, it's hard to argue he wasn't being effective. What they're going to do this week, I think the Jets right now are in as big a mess of a team as any team in the league. I think Cincinnati goes out and gets healthy again this week.
I agree with Andy. First of all, Woody Johnson, I think, is the name of the owner.
Yeah.
And Tyrod Taylor is definitely an upgrade over Fields. Fields has never been qualified to be an NFL quarterback. I don't know why they keep pumping him up as one.
Maybe they should just use him as a running back because he does good things with his legs. But
it shows you how desperate the league is for good quarterback play, right there.
Well, it's hard to find good quarterbacks. That's why if you look at the replacement quarterbacks, many of them are better than the quarterbacks they're replacing. The thing in Minnesota is pretty obvious that J.J. McCarthy is not ready for the NFL. He's going to be very good. I really believe that. But he's not ready for people to say it's an upgrade to go to Wentz, because Wentz is not that good. He's capable at times, and he put up numbers, but he makes mistakes. Oh, my God.
Oh, he was terrible last week.
He got over 300 yards, but he was awful.
He makes some very bad decisions.
Yes, he does. He really does. But when you look at McCarthy playing in the time that we saw him playing, he wasn't capable of being a quarterback yet. He needs time to learn. And so we, like Greg said, and there's Mark. I see Mark come on the screen. He
showed up in the email just a few minutes ago.
So
we're all set.
So Cincinnati with Flacco is a very capable, very experienced guy. If he can stand up straight, he's going to find those receivers, and they have elite receivers, and that opens up the running game. Jets have no chance in this game whatsoever. I would lay the points, and
which is very unusual. Which, by the way, is very unusual for you.
I can't. Yeah, for me to lay that number, it is really. Now let me talk about the other side of this. Tyrod Taylor will probably, if he can remain upright the whole game, will probably put up some points because Cincinnati's defense is not good. I mean, that's for certain. So you probably have to look at 2 sides of this. Cincinnati, the favorite, and maybe a possible teaser, and the over. I mean, you look at the line move, 41.5 up to 44.5, and 2.5 up to 6.5. The market is telling you a lot with those 2 numbers.
And this is, by the way, without potentially Garrett Wilson, who I do not think is going to play, and Sauce Gardner, who I do not think is going to play. Why would you play and risk your 2 cornerstone players when you have a bye coming up next week. I do not see them playing, which means that the Jets, like their number one receiver, is going to be Josh Reynolds and Alan Lazard. I mean, and then they can't cover Chase because Sauce ain't going to be out there.
We could be looking at a 0-17 team here.
Yes, and without their two top players.
Yeah, we could be. They're already 0-7.
Yes.
We could definitely see an 0-17 team here.
The Jets are 3-9 against the spread in their last 12 as a road dog. What do you think about this one, Mark?
Well, I'm attracted to winless teams, but Jim makes a great point. There's a winless team and there's a winless shell of a team.
Yeah.
And, it's difficult for me to, move any further forward with that thinking. I'm kind of sort of waiting. Tell me guys this, if the Jets lose this game, go into their bye and come out of their bye, and they're going to host the Cleveland Browns, will the Jets be a home dog? That's the question I have to ask.
Oh, my God.
Oh, wow. Really? Imagine that.
I could certainly see it.
There's a motive to my question. Go ahead.
Yeah. I could certainly see them being a home underdog.
Does it matter what Cleveland does
that would definitely be an underplay. I mean, the total in the game probably be 29.
Does it matter what Cleveland does this week? Let's say Cleveland loses like they're supposed to.
Well,
I'm going to say the Jets would be like a 1-point favorite because they will get back Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. So, and they'll probably have Quincy Williams back as well.
Didn't they close 1-point underdogs against Carolina?
Yes. That's why I think they'll be a 1-point favorite. Yeah. Because Carolina
you're saying
better than the Browns right
Carolina's better offensively than Cleveland, but not too many teams are better defensively than Cleveland. And going up against the Jets offense that is horrible.
Yeah. What was your intention on that question, Mark?
Well, my intention is this. In my database, perhaps there's no stronger angle that appears to an ugly-looking play than the New York Jets, and it would be this. Winless teams that are dogs coming off a bye week are just unbelievable. I don't know if they used the bye week to tell themselves about how embarrassingly bad they are and whatever else they have to do, but they get 2 weeks to get ready for a football game. And if the Jets dress up as an underdog, I'm talking numbers like 19-2. Okay.
Whoa.
Yes. So
there's a lot of motivation coming out of the bye after the 2 weeks of utter disappointment and embarrassment. Hearing everybody in the media telling you how bad you are, and that gets them going.
I'm sure it has to play into it. A factor, that and the fact the athlete's humiliation, just the fact of, they know how poorly they've played. They got to do better than this.
Okay.
Whatever it happens to be, that ugly dog with that week of rest that's winless and he dresses up as a dog has been absolutely a terrific play. So we'll see how that all shakes out.
Mark,
is that a Thursday night game, I believe?
No, that's the Patriot game the week after. Yeah. Please don't do that to us, the Jets and the Browns.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah, it's the 9th. Cleveland's the 9th. New England is the following. Yeah.
Mark, I'll let you take over again.
All right, guys. I'm going to welcome everybody to the show. This is Mark Lawrence, and we're all set to go against the spread on this week's college and pro football cards. And with that, I want to welcome our panel of experts extraordinaire to the show. From Las Vegas, the legend himself, Jim Feist. Jim, how are you doing these days?
I'm doing much better, Mark. Thank you. I got rid of some of my upper respiratory stuff, and I'm able to actually speak. It's a plus when you're doing podcasts and radio shows all day.
Unquestionably, nothing like good health for sure. Andy Isco, Las Vegas. How are you doing this football season? And anything in particular you'd like to share with us before we begin the show?
Well, I know we touch upon the Survivor contests from time to time, and after the carnage of Week 5, Week 6 was relatively calm. I think they had about 228 people eliminated from the 4,400, and Week 7 was pretty much of the same. I think the big one was, I forget, 100 and something got eliminated in the Survivor, with the Steelers losing at Cincinnati on Thursday night, and then we just had a handful of others on Sundays. I think Sunday, Monday, and I think we had about another 200. So we're down to about 4,200 from the original 18,000. And the Kansas City Chiefs were a very popular pick last week. In fact, the two teams that I think in the Westgate Super Survivor, which is the $5,000 entry one, they started with 111 entrants. They're down to 24. And there were only 2 teams picked last week by those 24. 20 of them were on the Chiefs. 4 of them were on the Patriots in their game at Tennessee. So nobody eliminated from that high ticket contest. And we'll be interested to see what can, especially in the Circus Survivor, because they have those split weeks at Thanksgiving and Christmas, and Kansas City is involved in both of those weeks. You need to have at least a few teams to choose from, because if you're out of teams when the shortened week of Christmas and Thanksgiving come around, you're eliminated. So, of course, Kansas City has a game against, I think the Commanders have petitioned the NFL that either in place of or in addition to playing the national anthem before their game against Kansas City, they play the theme from MASH, because they're just about as injured as any team is. So when you think about Kansas City going up against Washington, they would normally be a very popular pick, but so many people took them last week that we may not see that big of a pick. I think the 2 big picks this week will be Indianapolis, and there'll be some people on Kansas City, but I think Indianapolis will be the top team that will be looked to.
I think so too, Andy, just from a saver standpoint.
Yeah.
From the fact that you alluded to, because they appear on both of those short weeks, Kansas City does, and people would want to have that bullet in their holster, if you will, when those weeks come about. Greg DePalma, our producer extraordinaire from Asheville, North Carolina. And I say that proudly because that's where my wife and I were married, right there in Asheville, North Carolina. How are you doing these days?
Doing good. Fresh off my marathon show last night. Andy did his own marathon show as well. We both did 3-hour podcasts yesterday. So we're kind of revved up. And I will say this. We were just talking about the Jets. Actually, it's still on the screen here. We're going to be moving along to another game here in a minute. But I found this out doing my research. And I don't know why I thought of it. I think I thought of it because, again, as a Jet fan, I got to try to watch as much of their crappy games as possible. But I just had this feeling about the teams that played the Jets that they, some of them weren't playing their best. I mean, you got to look at it. Even though the Jets have been awful, let's keep in mind they've been 4 out of their 6 games have been decided by 1 score, I believe. So they're not getting blown out in all the games. But I'm thinking about, Carolina, they just didn't play all that well either. And Denver, they just didn't play well either. And I started thinking, how we've looked at these interesting trends before. And so I said, let me try that. Let me try to look up what happens to the teams after they play the Jets. Well, I was able to obviously find that out in no time. So after a team plays the Jets, the very next game, they're 2-4 straight up and 0-6 against the spread.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's sort of like, it's either bad luck in a way where they're playing bad at the wrong time, and then they get the Jets and they're lucky the Jets aren't good, so they just beat them. But then the next game, well, now any other team can beat them, and so they take advantage of it. Or maybe they come down to the Jets level, and then when they play a team that has a pulse, you can't play like that against us. You can get away with it, the Jets, but you can't get away with that with us.
How good is the Jets' defense, and how physical are they? Are they showing up?
Yeah, that is the only thing that they are doing recently. It's the only thing that they haven't done. But there's no quitting on the team yet. I don't think they're going to quit. It's a first-year coach. They respect Aaron Glenn. They are a very physical team. I guess there is a possibility of that being a part of it as well.
They ranked number 18 overall in the NFL, the Jets defense, which is not bad for a winless team.
Considering how bad they were the first few games of the season defensively.
Yeah, they were horrid, no question. But their Achilles heel has been obviously their offense, number 30 in the league, and wondering where their next point's going to be coming from. Before we get into the National Football League card here, guys, first of all, I want to remind our listeners out there that if you haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button. We would deeply appreciate you doing just that. And hit the like button while you're down there, and ring the bell if you would. All big favors to us. If you do that, we'd be deeply, deeply appreciative of that. Before we get onto the show, I'm going to share some things from, I'll call this my I'm Just Saying segment of the show, if you will. This comes from our midweek alert statistical newsletter. And I deeply love the midweek alert, especially this time of the year when the teams are beginning to fill up their statistics. Their boxes are beginning to fill up because obviously they have games they played and results. We can compound, do all the analytics, so forth and whatnot. But in this week's midweek, I'm going to point out a couple of things that we call out here is the fact that in the league so far this year, Philadelphia leads the league in one-score wins with 5, which happens to be all of their wins this year. Unbelievable. Denver, San Francisco, and Tampa own 4 one-score wins. Keep that in mind when you're approaching the card this week. And on the other side, one-score losses this year. It's Arizona and the Jets who lead the league with 5 one-score losses. All 5 of the Cardinals and Jets losses have been one-score losses. So every one of their games has been crying towel sort of losses, if you will. The Atlanta Falcons lead the NFL in 5 games in which they've held an opponent to season-low yardage. The Indianapolis Colts lead the league on the other side of the coin, in which they've allowed season-high yardage in 5 games. And I want to share this with our listeners also out there that if the NFL playoffs were to begin this week, I call it playoff picture, and I love doing it this time of the year to see how these teams are going back and forth and adjusting and so forth and whatnot. In the AFC wild card, if that was taking place this weekend, it would be the number 2 Patriots hosting the number 7 Jaguars, the number 3 Denver Broncos hosting the number 6 LA Chargers, and the number 4 Steelers taking on the number 5 Buffalo Bills in Pittsburgh. On the NFC side of things, it would be number 2 San Francisco hosting number 7 the LA Rams. That would be a heck of a football game, to say the least. The number 3 Eagles against the number 6 Seahawks, and the number 4 Tampa Bay Bucks against the number 5 Detroit Lions. So we'll see how that shakes up this particular week. It does each and every week because every win is so vital to every football team. We've seen some teams be as high as the number 1 seed and bounce out of the number 1 seeding position. So keep those in mind when we head into the weekend card this weekend.
By the way, Mark, when I was having those issues before, I was able to hear everybody, and I heard Greg talking about the teams after playing the Jets. And of course, that would involve Carolina. Not only are they 0-6 against the spread, all of those opponents' games have gone over the total, 6-0 to the over after playing the Jets.
Wow.
So that might be something to keep in mind this week when Carolina.
There's got to be.
That means take Buffalo in the over.
There's got to be something to it. The Jets must have a very physical defense that.
Well, it would seem to be the opposite. To the extent that if you're not really challenged by the Jets, you fail the next week because you're stepping up in class after playing like a college level team. Now you're playing a pro team, and you don't play as well as you would against the team because you weren't challenged the week before against the Jets.
Wow.
So normally you think of it when you go back, the Steelers used to have that, but Steelers were always a very physical team. And for years and years, you would fare very poorly the week after you played the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not so sure that that's the reason, because the Jets defense is it's a strength, but strength is only relative to how bad their offense is, because their defense is not at the level that it was last year.
There's something to be said for after playing certain teams, and a good friend of ours, Andy and Jim, well, Brian Blessing, who passed and lived in Las Vegas, he was keen on the fact of ferreting out these teams to see how they performed in games afterwards. And he had a weekly list that we would go over, and some of them made all the sense in the world, just logical, just given the fact that, like the Pittsburgh Steelers you mentioned before, Andy, in their day, they were a very physical defensive football team. And when you go up against very physical defensive football teams, you'll sort of be bruised up, banged up, and maybe not at your peak the very next week. Now, I don't know about teams after the Jets are ringing that bell.
Well, I could mention, for example, Denver. Let's take Denver. After playing Denver, teams are 1-5 straight up, 1-5 against the spread. Denver's a very physical team. Let me see what Cleveland is, because Cleveland would also seem to have that impact. Cleveland 2-3-1 straight up, 2-4 against the spread. Interesting enough, 6-0 over unders after facing Cleveland. And perhaps, again, it means that you're going up against a lesser defense after facing the Browns So your offense is likely to have more success than it did against
Well,
Cleveland.
it's like you waltzed against the Jets. You waltzed against Cleveland. Just take these restraints off and let me get out there and play some football.
Yeah.
Is basically opening up.
Well, more so than the Jets. Probably more like Cleveland, but Denver. But Denver's. We only have a handful of games. Teams after playing Miami 5-1 to the over. Kind of makes sense.
One of those stats you were talking about, Mark, regarding the Colts, because I know you brought this up last week regarding the Colts and some of their stats. So I just want to share some comments from after our Friday show last week. And first of all, Renault 75, thanks Jim and company, my go-to podcast for football betting insight. But then Smarty Jones, dear Mark, Colts are no fraud. So this is in relation to
Smarty Jones. Wasn't that racehorse?
Yes.
Yes, it
Triple
was.
Crown horse.
Yeah,
not
Smarty's,
Triple Crown, but
Smarty's one of our horse racing viewers. So
It fell
yes.
just short of the Triple Crown.
Was that a Chad Brown horse?
I don't recall. Maybe
I think
Smarty
he was kind of like
an
an unknown trainer's kind of a horse, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah. So but again, that's based on your stats there, Mark. And they did it again. They went out and they gave up more yards.
All I can say to that is this, Greg, and I thought about that, making that comment that, sooner or later they're going to pay the price. And making a comment like that about them being the most highly overrated football team is saying a lot. And then they go out and they perform and they just kill. It kind of makes you have to eat your words. But all I'm saying is, when things begin to unravel in Indianapolis, it will be because this defense isn't what everybody thinks it is. That's my point.
How much of that, Mark, is related, however, to the fact that they get out to some of these nice leads and teams are playing garbage time catch-up football?
Yeah.
They blow out Tennessee. They blew out Miami the first game of the season. I'll get them, I think, by 200-something yards in that situation. But a lot of these teams are forced to put up big numbers playing from behind. I think we saw it last week against the Chargers.
It would be simple. It would be that's what the Colts maybe perhaps allowed garbage yards because they got out to big leads. What happens to the Colts when they don't get out to big leads? Are those the football games that they may end up tasting defeat in? Because they're not in that same comfort zone as they've been before in the past. So maybe those garbage yards won't even play into the equation.
Well, the one game I think that fits that. Didn't they get outgained? Didn't they get outgained by Indianapolis, by the Rams, when the guy dropped the ball before going in the end zone? So that was a competitive game, but they were outgained, I think, by over 100 yards in that one.
Yes, they were.
Against the Rams.
Another comment from last week's show was from Expat Mark 6611. Been following you guys for decades. So
nice.
You have people that know you guys for a long time. So
does that mean we're old?
It does, unfortunately, Jim.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a polite way of saying it.
Yeah.
But the message is clear.
Aging gracefully, Jim.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we got some games to go over, Mark.
Yeah, let's do that, guys. Listeners are out there. They want to know what we like this week, and we're going to break down some good football games in the National Football League while we've got Jim Feist on for the first half of the show. Let's get over to the NFL side of things. There's a big football game. It's a kind of a rather weak card. I would call it thin, if for no other reason, because we've got 6 teams in a bye, and that basically leaves you what's left to
7 if you include the Jets.
They're not on the card. And there's not a lot of appealing games personally on the card this particular week, but one of them is the San Francisco 49ers when they're going to take on Houston, the Texans in Houston. Jim, what do you think happens here? Do the 49ers continue to keep surprising teams, or will the Houston Texans finally wake up and be the Texans they were expected to be?
I don't think the Houston Texans are very good this year. I mean, I had Seattle last week as my best bet in the contest, the Invitational at Circa, and I know Seattle turned the ball over 4 or 5 times and they still won handily, and it could have been a lot worse if they didn't turn the ball over. Houston is just not, their offensive line isn't strong. Stroud, who had that great rookie year, I think he's seeing ghosts. He gets hit so much and there's so much pressure on him that even when there's not pressure, he's reacting as if there is. Now, when you see a home team, a 1 or 1.5 point or 2, or Circa just went to 2.5 on Houston. That's interesting because everybody else, well, you got another sports book, I don't know the name of it, went to 2 as well, and then Fanatics, it went to 2. So there's a little bit of money on Houston, but I don't see why, because they haven't played well all year, and they played the wins that they had. I know they beat Baltimore, which totally decimated team with no Lamar, and the team before that, I'm not sure, was it Tennessee that they beat?
It was Tennessee, and they were up 6-0 going to the fourth quarter, and then piled it on in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
so it's a misleading final.
This is not a good football team at this time. I think the injuries, the offensive line problems. I like the coach. I like their defense. They got strength on defense. But San Francisco's a good team, and they are, a potential playoff team, well coached. Mac Jones, who's playing very, very well, should be guaranteeing himself a starting position somewhere as a quarterback, even though Purdy is the quarterback there at this point. I don't get it. I don't get why Houston is being touted as so good, and we keep ignoring the fact that this year they're playing terrible. And yeah, we had expectations for them to be solid this year, but it's not true. It's not come true. They played all these games and they haven't shown it yet. And the times that they did, it was against a debilitated Baltimore team and a terrible Tennessee team.
Could this move, Jim, be tied into some San Francisco injuries, the continuing injuries that the 49ers are experiencing this year?
Do they have more this week than they had last week?
No.
And they keep winning even with all those injuries.
Well, they've got the nucleus of a good team. First of all, they got a good coach that is a good offensive coach, and they got a defensive coach. They're good in those issues, and that's strength because they know how to game plan for the opposition, as the Seattle did against them. And Seattle made that game closer with all the turnovers. So anyway, here's a team that opens 43.5. It's down to 41. Now, you're not looking at a lot of points in the game. Obviously, they're figuring this is going to be a defensive game. I like my quarterback better. I like my running game better. I'd say my defensive game is probably equal. You don't give much in the NFL for home field anymore, and I feel San Francisco's a live dog here.
Well, I'm going to maybe take umbrage with the defensive part of the side of the game, Jim. Houston's a pretty sneaky good defense. Number 1 in points allowed, number 8 overall in total yardage. In Frisco, I think they lack about 58 yards a game defensively to Houston, which might be Houston's only prayer in the football game. What I have to ask you guys is, Mac Jones, has he lost a start for the 49ers this year so far?
Yeah, the Tampa Bay game.
He started that game, okay.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
Okay.
And he really didn't it wasn't like he had a good game last week.
Well, let me ask you guys this question. Would you say so far the season to date that San Francisco has played maybe a little better than expected that they were going to play, even with the injuries?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say for sure they have, yes.
Well, in my opinion,
also,
it's just one game, Andy. It's that Rams.
No, I know, but I'm getting some here in a moment. Would you that Houston has performed below expectations?
By a lot.
For sure.
Yeah, coming off 2 division titles and some playoff successes at times. The reason I bring that up is I'm going to go back and I start doing this at this time of the season. What was the Westgate line when they put out those 18-week schedules in August, and you could actually live bet those games at the time, sides and totals? This game between we're not so sure what San Francisco is going to be, but we think Houston's pretty good. This game was pick'em.
It was pick'em?
It was pick'em. That's and now you actually have the team that is underperforming expectations actually favored. I mean, the site hasn't changed. It was a home pick'em, and now it's a home favorite for the team that is badly
It's got to be
underachieving.
the injuries. It's got to be.
And Houston just played on the road against the pretty physical Seattle defense on the road Monday night.
Yeah.
And so San Francisco actually had another day to rest. I don't get this move.
It has to be injuries. I mean, not just the move this particular week, Jim, but I think the answer to Andy's question, is injuries for San Francisco.
San Francisco's 5-2, and they've been playing with injuries every week. It goes back to Purdy. What, game 1 or game 2, he got injured, and they keep winning, and now they're going up against a team that's not very good.
Well, the thing that I think it is it's one thing to be able to pull it off, especially last week. It was the first week without Warner. And I think it's one thing to be able to do it for 1 week, but to keep expecting them to play like this against good teams week in and week out, when now Warner's out, Bosa's out, we know who's out. Everybody's out. And I think you could do that over a very short
You just made one key statement, though. You just said against good teams. Are you considering Houston a good team when you're speaking about the Houston offense? Well, on offense,
I don't think they're a very good team. I think they're disappointing, but I think
I don't think they're good. I don't think they're good on offense at all. And you're talking about the loss that San Francisco had on defense. So yes, if they were going up against a better offensive team, I could understand that.
The problem with the offense early on was, you had the whole situation. We all understood what happened before the season. Mixon, nobody expected that was going to be the case. So they screwed up. You should have had somebody in there for him, and they went to Chubb. Bad decision. First 3 weeks of the season, they lose all those games, and they lost all 3 of them in the fourth quarter in the last minute or 2 of the game. So Tampa Bay, I think they won all of their games when they were down to the last minute of the game. That's how close the NFL can be every season. It comes down to one play here, one play there. Keeping in mind they had no Christian Kirk the first several games of the season. He's the number 2 receiver. So they finally got him back. And look, they win a couple of games. But now what happens in the Seattle game? Collins goes down with a concussion, so we're not going to see him, which is big. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, I wouldn't want to take Houston without Collins because they already have a suspect offense with him, and he's their best offensive player. So, and then we're looking at the D'Amico Ryans factor, former San Francisco coach.
I was going to mention that. There is still some familiarity because he was at D.C. there when Robert Saleh left.
Yeah, there's going to be I think Houston's defense is going to come to play. They don't have a lot of injuries on defense. So I think their defense is going to come to I look at this as a very low-scoring game.
So, Jim, what's your side on the game that you're going to get to on this game, Niners and Texans?
There's only one side. I have to play the Niners. If I have to play the game, I got to play the Niners, and I'd have to play the under.
Niners and under.
Yeah. And Niners money line as long as they still stay an underdog.
Well, I think Jim will take the points.
Yeah, and the dogs, I always take the points on the small favorites. I lay the money line.
Right. So, Andy, where are you going here? San Francisco, Houston.
San Francisco.
And Greg.
I do not understand this line. Given the body of work that these two teams have shown this year, even considering the injuries past and present, San Francisco's been able to win despite having all their injuries, especially on offense. And Houston, it took a game against Tennessee, the worst team in the league outside of the Jets, and then it was a 6-0 game in the fourth quarter to get that win. And then, maybe the worst thing that happened to them was they had that bye week after they routed Baltimore. But again, it's not the Baltimore Ravens that we're accustomed to seeing. It was, Baltimore. It was Cincinnati Bengal players wearing Baltimore Ravens uniforms on defense.
Greg DePalma, you taking or laying in this football game?
Again, if I'm going to make a pick on the game, I'll take the under, even though I'm not a total guy. But if I had to take the game, I'm probably going to actually take Houston if I have to take it, just because their backs are against the wall. They have to win this game. Can't go 2-5. They're not going to win the division. So this is like a wild card situation. They know they got to win games. And like I said, the defense is healthy. So I think the defense is what's going to win the game for them.
Let's take a look at the other side of this with San Francisco. They have to win this game because they're right tied with 2 other teams atop the division in the NFC West. Every game is important. You've got to win the games that you should be able to win, that you should be expected to win, regardless of the line here, because a loss here could cost 49ers the NFC West title.
I think the point, though, that Greg was alluding to, Andy, is the fact that right now Frisco has the number 2 seed. Right now, Houston is the number 10 seed, way on the outside looking in. So the game is probably of more importance to Houston if they want to improve their chances. In San Francisco, if either two teams could afford a loss, it would likely be they.
Not with the 49ers tied with the Rams and the Seahawks. A 3-way battle for first.
Well, the first 7 seeds, the 6 through 7 seeds all have identical records at 5-2. So every game is important because there's a log jam there, if you will, between all those teams. But Houston needs to create some kind of a log jam is what they need to do.
Right now, Houston's 2.5 minus 15 at circa. I'm going to jump right in there. I'm going to buy at the 3 and take 3 with San Francisco.
Yeah.
There you go. I'll be with Jim on this game as well, on the 49ers in the contest here. They've out-yarded 6 of their 7 opponents, Frisco has, even with all these injuries, and more importantly on the defensive side with Joey Bosa and Fred Warner and so forth, the injuries offensively, Kittle and everything else, but they still managed to outgain 6 of their 7 opponents, whereas Houston's been out-yarded 4 of their 6 contests this year. Usually in games like that, just put tape over the names of the teams, you would find the team that had won the yard 6 of the 7 times would likely be the better team and or the favorite in the contest. So I'm a little bit surprised at this line here as well.
Mark?
Yes.
Mark, you just got a comment. Hey, Greg. That's you, Greg. Okay. From Matt T. I played Louisville money line, Stanford money line. He made money. And he says, thanks for the picks.
You got it, Matt. Hey, we haven't even talked since then, Mark. How about Stanford, baby?
Nice one. By the way, one factor that does favor Houston, statistic factor, and it's an important factor for many people. I use it. Turnover differential. San Francisco -5, Houston +4.
Well, there's a thing about handicapping turnovers, and I think nobody has the recipe or the exact formula.
Yeah.
But one of the sharpest guys that I've known I knew a long time who passed was a real good friend of Billy Walters, and they bet a lot together. And his answer to turnovers was simply that there's always a regression back to the mean on turnovers, especially for the teams that are way far outside of the norm and way inside of the norm, that they'll eventually get back to the mean. And so now you got to ask yourself, what's the cause of the turnovers? Is it just faulty play, bad football teams, unattentive play, poor coaching? There's a lot of factors that go into that. But when I see -5 to +4, my first reaction is to kind of make a case for the -5 if I'm taking points. That's just a theory of thought.
No, it makes sense. I take a look at turnovers differently. Yes, I point out turnover margin. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I place more emphasis on teams that don't turn the ball over, because turnovers often are the case of, well, sometimes it could be bad decision making, say by the quarterback or by the receiver who tries to do too much, as opposed to teams forcing turnovers, which I think are more random. So I look to play on teams that don't turn the football over nearly as much as the opponent that they're facing.
Well, let's move on here to the Chicago Baltimore Ravens game this week, guys. And it appears Lamar Jackson is going to be behind center for the Ravens. I don't know if that's been officially announced yet, as of yet. But I sort of feel that when it is officially announced, this game will move even a little more than it's anticipated. The line is there because they anticipated he was going to play. But still, when the official announcement comes out, it's going to move again. So you have to keep that in mind. If you're back in Baltimore and you're going to wait for the announcement, you're going to really let all the value go right out the window in a situation like that. The Chicago Bears, a real upstart team coming into this game on a 4-game straight up an ATS win streak. And the Baltimore Ravens, probably arguably one of the, if not the most disappointing team in the league. Jim, the hot hand or the cold hand, which way are you looking?
Well, here's one bet probably most people won't talk about. Chicago is the only team in the NFL other than Dallas that's gone over their team total every game. So I'll be betting that. And I will wait to see the announcement because it does make a big difference.
Yes.
If Lamar, of course, now the question mark, if you take care of that side of the ball, Lamar he's going to play or he's not going to play. I have to ask this question. Their defense hasn't shown up at all this year. Baltimore, I'm talking about. Are they going to show up, and why would they show up? What's the reason what has happened? Did they get players back? Did they find new players? I mean, what the hell happened to their defense? Why are they so bad? I don't get it.
Yeah. And Roquan Smith is the only player that is looking like he might return to the lineup. That'll help them. But yeah, they've got injuries in the secondary. I mean, Kyle Hamilton, who might be their best defenders, banged up, may or may not play. Their best corner has an illness this week. So I agree. I mean, I don't understand. They're giving all this credit to the Ravens. Like, oh, Lamar Jackson's back. Everything's going to get fixed. Well, wait a second. Lamar Jackson was there, and they still were getting outgained in every game. They were losing. Their defense couldn't stop anybody. I don't understand why Lamar Jackson coming back is going to change all that.
Well, what blows my mind, guys, is only Dallas and Cincinnati have worse defenses than do the Ravens coming into this football game. That's really a rather Harbaugh-like number for this defense to go on vacation on hiatus as much as they have this season. And because of it, they've lost the yards in 6 of their 7 football games. You're coming in here also looking at a Bear football team that you have to admit, they've been resurrected here by Ben Johnson. They've caught the Johnson and Johnson fever, if you will, per se. It's a tough football game for me. I'm going to let it go because, like Jim mentioned, we don't know the status of Lamar Jackson. We don't know it thoroughly. And if he does play and you like Baltimore, you want to hop on that train and lay a couple of more points than you could have earlier on. Or if he doesn't play, you're going to get hung with a bad number in a football game. To me, it's a really, really tough football game to bet. Andy, how are you going to bet this game?
Can you hear us okay, Andy?
Andy might be muted.
Yes, he's muted.
Yes, that was it because I was having video issues, so I was trying to get a little bit more resolved. Just was reading the update, and Lamar Jackson was a participant in practice again today. He was limited on Wednesday, so I believe he's been upgraded to probable now. And I heard what you said, Mark, and you're absolutely right. I mean, we may not know exactly until they announce the inactives 90 minutes before game time on Sunday. I imagine he'll be listed as probable on the injury report Friday night, but I don't know how reliable that is. But yes, you're absolutely right that as soon as there's some certainty on this game, if you like Baltimore, maybe you want to play him now if you believe Lamar Jackson is going to play, because when it is announced, that line will shoot up from 6.5 to 8.5, or 8.5. And if it turns out that he's going to be ruled out for the game, that line's going to go from 6.5 down to 4.5 or 5.
Wait. So let me get this straight. If Lamar Jackson, Jim, if Lamar Jackson doesn't play, they're going to be favored by 4 points.
Most likely because they're
home.
With that backup quarterback and that terrible defense, really. Well, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying, wow.
We also don't know what to expect coming off of the bye, what adjustments and improvements may have been made, in addition to players getting healthy. But I'm just saying the Lamar Jackson effect. Because he's so important, we know there's going to be a line move because his status this whole week has been uncertain. So if you think he's going to play and you want to back Baltimore, back him now. If you think he's not going to play and you want to bet Chicago, play Chicago now.
What was the line in the Houston game?
1.5.
2.5, I think Jim said it moved.
2.5 now, yes.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of
in the Baltimore-Houston game. Houston was favored by 1. So you think that with the Bears playing better than Houston has, you still think that Baltimore would be favored by 4?
Well, that doesn't make any sense. How Houston was favored by 1 at Baltimore?
Yes, because they had the backup quarterback.
And Chicago's a better team than Houston. And
that's exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And the Rams, they were a 7-point dog. 7.
Well,
okay.
That's going to fit. That's going to fit a show we're going to do about where on earth did this line come from.
I guess
I've been smoking too much pot. I think.
I think the line
medicinal, Jim. Medicinal.
I
Yes.
guess.
I think the line's where it is because it has been expected ever since Baltimore went on a spy.
I
that
agree.
Lamar Jackson is much
what I
more
think.
likely to play than
Yes.
not play.
Yes, that's what I think. I think this line would be like pick 'em.
And I'm
if he
surprised
wasn't
there
playing.
wasn't much of a line move when they announced that he did not practice on Monday. It was like a light practice, and they
Yeah, you're right. They knew it. Yeah, they knew he was playing. You're right. Yeah.
Well, guys, let's get over to the big game, our featured game on tap this week. And it's a featured game, if for no other reason, it's Aaron Rodgers against his former team, the Green Bay Packers. It's Green Bay going into Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. I think this game's got a lot of intrigue inside of it, Jim. What do you think, and which way are you going to look in this contest?
Well, personally, I think Green Bay's overrated. I think they're a very solid team, well coached, decent quarterback, not great quarterback. They got tools, and a lot of people think this is like, I mean, they're locked in. They're going to go to the playoffs, the possible Super Bowl contender, and could be, But I haven't seen them play that great, except for the first game when they beat Detroit. But that was Detroit, and that was the first game with a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, new center, which Detroit lost in the offseason. I haven't seen them play that good since.
They played well on that next Thursday night against Washington, but that was it.
Now, Pittsburgh, their defense has fallen apart quite a bit. Going up against Flacco and Chase and Higgins, it's no shame in the game to give up points to Cincinnati, who at the beginning of the year you would have, and I would have said, and I did say actually, that with Burrow and those receivers and Dak and his receivers, they would be the highest two scoring teams in the league. I didn't count on the Colts being there with them. I didn't count on that. But I don't see Pittsburgh as being that bad that they should be a 3 or 3.5 point underdog at home. I think Pittsburgh wins this game without the points. I will be taking the points. Well, no, I have already taken the points. So let's not. And I would probably say that the way that these teams have played, that I don't see a slowing down in the offense. I think this total open 43.5 up to 45.5, 46 at South Point. I see this as an over bet. So I like Pittsburgh and over.
Well, the South Point's always a pretty good indicator. They got a good crew of odds makers over there. Yeah. And, whatever moves they make, I think are warranted. You have to at least look at them and acknowledge that those are probably likely logically good moves. And the move to the over total, as Jim mentions, appears to be the way the football game is going. Andy, what do you think happens here? Is Aaron Rodgers a factor in this football game? Do the Pittsburgh Steelers need the points at home? Will they win the game straight out, or do you think the Packers roll?
I find it interesting. Aaron Rodgers comes out and states, this is not a game of revenge for me, which tells me it's a game of revenge for him.
Why would he?
why would he even comment on it?
Why would he even bring the subject up? Right.
Exactly.
But no, I'm totally. I think Jim gave all the right answers as far as all the right reasons why I'm also on Pittsburgh in this spot. I'm a little bit, but it was really weird that game against Cincinnati. If you saw that first quarter, that Pittsburgh defense looked like the Pittsburgh defense of old. They were attacking and they were aggressive, and then things settled down, and Cincinnati was able to have some success. But fundamentally, Pittsburgh's still a very sound team. They just have been victimized by some poor defensive alignments, I guess you could say, and beaten by some skilled players throughout the season. But I still think fundamentally they're a solid team. It's a good spot for Pittsburgh. I have not been impressed with Green. In fact, the two teams, and they're very similar in their paths that they're taken. Green Bay and Buffalo. They've both Green Bay and Buffalo got off to really good starts, and then they both really. I mean, we were anointing, not we, but a lot of the media was anointing Green Bay the NFC favorite after the first 2 weeks of the season, and they've not come close to playing that kind of football. I mentioned that Jim mentioned about that Week 1 effort against Detroit, and then they followed up. I think they outgained Washington on that Thursday night game, something like 404 to 220. or something along those lines. That they played very well on that Thursday night game, but that was really the last very good game they played. They struggled more than we expected them against Cincinnati a few weeks ago. So I'm not so sure that the Green Bay is as strong as they showed earlier. I don't think that they're as poor as they may have looked, or as ordinary as they may have looked the last few games. But I think this is the spot for Pittsburgh, who, especially after that loss to Cincinnati, realizes that with Joe Flacco, Cincinnati's now in position to be their main challenger in the AFC North, barring some incredible turnaround by Baltimore.
All I'm going to tell you about is just wait for Joe Flacco. Eventually, he's going to start throwing picks like Jameis Winston. They're going to come, but right now he's a nice boost for that football program. They needed a boost, and he's supplying it. Let's just wait and see if he can keep the ball throw it to his players rather than other players. But we'll see whether or not Flacco falls into that gutter once again coming in. Greg, 3 for 3 for Pittsburgh, or are you looking at the Packers?
No, I'm taking the Steelers, and this is actually going to be more against the Packers. Same reason why I liked Arizona last week, and we talked about that last week on the show on Friday, that Green Bay is just not good in this spot. The road favorite for the Packers has not worked out. Matter of fact, they're now 4-13 in their last 17 as a road favorite, 0-3 already this year. This is a bad spot for them. And maybe the same situation like I was talking about when I was thinking about the Jets, and that trend was we talked about teams that kind of not playing all that well, but because of who they were playing, they got by. And that's what I think was happening to the Packers here the last few weeks. But now they do step up in competition. They're on the road in a situation where they're going to get the Steelers' best effort. It's not like they're going to catch a team that might have a bad off week, maybe just another week. You know the Steelers on prime time with Aaron Rodgers are going to play their best game of the season, and I think that's enough for me.
I'm going to make it 4 for 4, guys. You got a grand salami going here.
Wow.
Yes, look out. There we go. Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin, always a good home dog. In his good days with Pittsburgh and even his bad days with Pittsburgh, he still cashes tickets with regularity as a home dog. 18-7-5 to the spread. That's a pretty strong number for the 30 games that he's been a home underdog in his career. The thing that concerns me a little bit is this, though, and maybe you guys can explain this to me. How is it the Green Bay Packers come in here having lost the money 4 straight games in a row, are coming in here as a favorite of more than a field goal? Am I missing something here? You would think that.
Let me mention what the line was over the summer, and it will surprise you even more. Before we knew anything about these teams back in August, the Packers were favored by 1.5 on the road in this game before the season started.
Okay.
I think, Mark, what's happening is people get stuck in their power ratings and they're slow to adjust them, or stubborn to adjust
them. Right.
And, the truth is right in front of you. It speaks to you every week. They should have lost last week to Arizona, for God's sake, with Brissett.
Yep.
Now, I happen to think Brissett's an upgrade over Murray, because I think Murray should be playing baseball. But be that as it may, they could have easily lost the game. I don't see. I mean, this is another game on the road. They go from Arizona back. I mean, they come over here now. This is a tough spot. Pittsburgh coming off a loss. Very, very difficult spot. I do not understand. There's got to be a lot of Green Bay love out there that I don't buy into. I also don't, speaking of love, not a pun intended.
Jordan,
I'm not really a big Jordan Love fan. I think he's good, but he's not great. I don't think he's ever shown that he's great. And if he's great, it's not consistently great. I don't get it.
He had a hot run in that playoff run 2 years ago, and everybody anticipated, well, it's only his second year. Look at how good he's playing. Just imagine what he's going to do the next year. And then he starts off the season with the injury in Brazil and never gets better. And so far this season, we haven't seen it. So maybe he'll get hot again by the end of the season, but we just haven't seen it yet.
Mark, what do you make of the numbers that show Green Bay outgaining their opponents by 55 yards per game, Pittsburgh being outgained by their opponents by 77 yards per game, and going back to your thoughts on turnovers and regression, Pittsburgh is +5 in turnover margin. Green Bay is exactly even, 0.
Well, Andy, with those numbers, the Green Bay Packers positive net in the stats and Pittsburgh's negative net in the stats. I like to use that stuff. If you find that Green Bay were the underdog in this game and they're doing all those things and Pittsburgh isn't doing those things, then we can start shooting holes at Pittsburgh.
No, what I'm saying is, don't those numbers to a great extent explain why Green Bay is favored in the game?
Well, that could well be. They know, Vegas knows, just like we know, they were as phony a baloney as the Philadelphia Eagles were to start the season here. They've only won the yards one time this year, the Pittsburgh Steelers have. They were winning with smoke and mirrors and appear to have perhaps got their act together. We don't know that yet, but just they won another game last week and lost the stats. So we don't know yet quite for Pittsburgh whether that's going to turn around here or not. It's hard to say. There's something with – I don't like to back football teams that have holes that wide that Pittsburgh has, at least offensively and defensively, when putting their numbers on the scales per se. But I'm with Jim. I think this Green Bay Packer team is vastly overrated. I know they're one of only 5 teams in the NFL that rank in the top 10 offensively and defensively. So kudos to them for doing that. The Green Bay Packers, they just don't do it impressively.
Well, the other thing, Mark,
I'm with you on Pittsburgh. I was just explaining perhaps why they were favored by 3.5 on the road because of the numbers.
Just take a look. Just take a look at the schedule. Just look at it. Washington, Cleveland, Dallas, Cincinnati, Arizona. And they were favored by 7, 6, 13, and 7. So I guess Vegas just felt, well, we were favoring them 7, 16, 13. Well, we brought it down. It's 3. I guess that would have been too big of a dramatic turn for a team that's been a favorite by 7 or more in all of their games, basically, to just make them a dog or a pick 'em.
So is that more a strength of schedule thing, Greg? Do you think that's more a strength of schedule thing that they've been favored like that, and against whom they've been favored?
And maybe even all the yards that Andy's talking about, because none of these teams right now are playoff teams. And they had that one big win first week of the season. And then that's kind of been the carryover effect since the season started because they keep winning. They had one bad loss. And so because they keep winning and they had that first big win, everybody, I think, looks at this Packer team as the Packer team they thought they were going to see when the season began.
And Pittsburgh has played the more difficult schedule. I mean,
yes,
they played
absolutely.
the Jets game committed. But then Seattle, New England, Minnesota, Cleveland's defense, Cincinnati. So,
and hey, they beat Cleveland.
Yeah.
Packers did.
Yeah.
So,
all right, guys, that was a nice little review of 3 games on tap in the National Football League this particular week. I know that Jim and Greg and I will be back tomorrow. We'll do our preview of what's coming up for the weekend, our final thoughts on the weekend card here on Proline TV.
Before we let Jim go, Matt 8893 wanted to know what you thought about the game tonight. Jim?
I already typed it to him. I told him.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that was you. Okay, good. I was wondering who that was that was typing. I was like, who's got control of the thing? So yeah, thanks. All right, go ahead, Mark.
All right, Jim. Well, thanks once again. As always, your information is invaluable. We appreciate it, and so too do the listeners. And I'll look forward to catching up with you tomorrow. Until then, let's have a good week.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. Good luck, everyone.
Jim, if you want to talk about doing the other video later today, you can send me a text.
I'll get back to you later. Thanks, Andy.
Sounds good.
That was Jim Feist joining us from Las Vegas here on Mark Lawrence Against the Spread. And we're going to move it over to the college football side of things on the football card this particular weekend. We're getting deeper and deeper into the football season, and we're getting better and better intriguing matchups. And they're almost all exclusively coming out of the Power 5 conferences. There's no sense in talking about the upstart group of 5 teams. There aren't any. There's nobody that's in a group of 5 football program that is going to put fear into the college football playoff this year. But the Power 4 conferences, now that's another story. And our top 3 games that we're going to tear apart this week all obviously come from the Power 4 conference. And with that, Andy, I'm going to start off with you. Another big game on tap here, if you will, inside the Southeast Conference, where we find Ole Miss traveling to Oklahoma. Is it a little bit of a surprise to you that Ole Miss is a dog of this size coming in this football game, or do the odds makers know what they're doing?
Well, Oklahoma's played very, very well this year. They had that game against Texas that bounced it, but they played well. But I like this Ole Miss team. Lane Kiffin loses a quarterback to the NFL, and the offense is clicking nicely, and the Ole Miss defense has played well. I think there's a coaching edge over Venables as far as Oklahoma goes. I think this line is a little bit too high. I did make a play on Ole Miss earlier this week, plus I think it was 7.5, if I remember. I wouldn't completely put it out of the realm of possibility that they pull the upset. I know they're coming off of that tough game last week, but Ole Miss has shown resiliency under Lane Kiffin.
Yes, they have. And I'm with you, Andy. I'm a little bit surprised at this number myself. That is until I start tearing things down of what it is Oklahoma has done this football season here. And amazingly, as I mentioned, I think I reviewed this in the top part of, I'm just saying when we're talking about the stats out of the midweek alert so far this football season, Oklahoma has held every opponent to a season low yardage mark this year. They're playing a special brand of defense. Nobody, I think, even realizes that. That's how well they played. And can they stop Ole Miss here in this football game? Well, this is not a typical Ole Miss football team where they're a freight train that's going to be running off the tracks here. They're not playing that way anymore. At least this particular football season, I haven't seen it. And I have to give the credit where credit is due, and that's to the Oklahoma Sooners. Dan Lanning has done a real nice job with this football program here. He came up short in the game against Texas, a game that I know they wanted dearly in the football contest here, but I'm not going to step in front of somebody who's as defensively staunch as Oklahoma is in this football contest here. Put me down for a lean to Oklahoma. And Greg, which way are you going in this game?
Excuse me one moment, Mark. I did also play the under in this game.
Okay. Andy, Ole Miss and the under.
Yeah.
Very good.
I'm this is not one of my favorite games because I think it's really tough to figure this out because of I don't know what to figure. I mean, Ole Miss last week, it's almost like it was this same old Lane Kiffin in these situations where, you start off undefeated and you've got this, you're playing really good football on the road as a touchdown dog at Georgia. Matter of fact, you're leading the game by 2 scores in the second half. Everything is going well. The offense is cooking. Your defense has made a few stops to put you in this position. And then Georgia's got a 4th down, and it looks like they stopped the running back behind the line of scrimmage, but they didn't. And he comes out of the pile and gets the 1st down, and the game was over after that. Right after that 1st down, Georgia was not to be stopped, and Ole Miss could not even get a 1st down. It was 3 and out. And when they did that back-to-back, they were done. And then they had to try to come back, and they couldn't do it. And it really was just typical Ole Miss. This is what we see all the time, is they let you down just when you're anticipating, hey, maybe this is Kiffin's best team. Look, they're beating Georgia by 2 scores in the second half. And then all of a sudden the offense disappears out of nowhere. So now look, that's the reason I just don't know what to expect out of Ole Miss. We do have to say that Lane Kiffin went into the game at 10-4-1 against the spread as a dog versus the opposition with a win percentage of 750 or better. So he lost that by this much. And so maybe that's a good sign. Maybe that says that he'll, with that 10-5-1 record, that he's due for another win. But Oklahoma is 8-3-1 against the spread in their last 12 as a home favorite, including just 1-1-1 this year. So not sure what that says. And they're also 12-1 against the spread at home before back-to-back road games. So there are a couple of trends that do favor Oklahoma, including the fact that Ole Miss is 0-8-2 against the spread in their last 10 in the second to back road games. So if I had to take the game, I would take Oklahoma just because of what you said, Mark, regarding their defense. The defense has been very impressive. But this is a game I'm just most likely going to pass on.
Well, if you're talking about the team trends, Greg, you probably also want to point out the fact that Ole Miss does not play well in the second of back-to-back road games.
Yes, 0-8-2. Yeah. Yes,
exactly. So will he be able to make a U-turn for this football program this particular week against this staunch defense? That sort of kind of remains to be seen.
And I don't know about the quarterback for Oklahoma either, because it wasn't like he lit it up last week. We still haven't seen the best of Mateer since the injury. And so that's why, if I knew Mateer was healthy and he was going to come out gunslinging on Saturday, I'd probably take Oklahoma. But because they still don't know if he's going to be effective and it's going to be all reliant upon the defense, that's the reason I'm just a little bit unsure.
Well, one of the things that I get to the game for is a feature we call in our newsletter called the Smart Box. And the Smart Box this week is called the dreaded bubble burst, which Ole Miss is going to be prey to this particular week. They had that perfect season ruined. Now it's game 8. And teams that have that perfect season ruined, game 8 really, really struggle in football games like this. 32-48 on the blind. But you start churning this thing down here and put all the parameters in place. They're off of Suat's loss. They've won 8 or more of the last 22 games. You can pare this thing down to 3-22 against Ole Miss in this football game. And I'm not going to step in front of that with the team, like I'm saying with Oklahoma. I know I'm over
3-22.
What's that?
You said 3-22.
3-22 against the spread. That's the rule.
And what was the trend?
Well, basically, what you're looking at here is a 6-1 team that's on the road, just off their first loss.
Okay.
They lost straight up and against the spread.
Okay.
This team here has won 8 or more of their last 22 games, which they have done just that. And they scored less than 36 points in their last game. You click and check all those boxes. That equates to that football team going 3-22 against the spread.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way,
strong.
Mark, you don't have to go that far back to find the very recent example. Last year, Pitt started 7-0. They didn't win another game that year, last year. And I think, according to the numbers that you show here, I think 1-5 against the spread.
Going out.
In the last 6 games, yeah.
Yeah. So those are sort of backbreaking losses, if you will, per se. 6-0, you're cooking, you're looking good, and all of a sudden you take that defeat. Now you're going to go up against a pretty strong opponent here. So I'm going to use those numbers to put me on the Oklahoma side of the game. I don't normally like laying points like this into a team like Ole Miss, but I think this is sort of a bit of a special circumstance, if you will. If I can get out of it and say that. But I'm going to go to Oklahoma for my side in this football game. Also, guys, another big game on tap Saturday, a big rivalry game. Andy, what do they call the Kansas State-Kansas rival? What's that known as? Do you recall?
Oh, I don't know offhand. I know they have a name for every game. But
you ready?
Yes.
It's the Sunflower Showdown.
Well, they got to do better than that, Greg. The Sunflower Showdown?
Yeah, that's a football rivalry name? Come on now.
I thought that's like a square dance.
Who did that? A coach's wife?
A hoedown, yeah. That's terrible. Yeah. But I don't think this game will be terrible. I think there's a lot to this football game coming in here. And Andy, what do you see happening here between these two rivals, the Wildcats or the Jayhawks?
I remember when I went through my review of these games before putting my my newsletter together and everything and deciding where I had opinions. This is one of those games where I didn't really have a strong opinion. I believe I ultimately went with Kansas at home, getting what's the line in that game?
Well, the line is now moved up here, at least on DraftKings, to 3.5.
Well, that's Kansas minus 3.5, right?
Yeah, which is interesting because Kansas State has dominated this series over the last 5 or 6 years,
to say the least.
Yeah,
16 straight wins.
Yeah, and Kansas is not that bad of a team. Although I think Leipold, the coach who had that great success up in Buffalo and went down to Kansas, he had some initial success and sort of leveled off over the last few years. But K-State under Kleiman also was a program that took great strides early on. And I think the last couple of years, Kansas State has come up a little bit short. They were considered to be, strong contenders to win the Big 12, even more so after Oklahoma and Texas left the conference last year. So I think that both of these teams have sort of been, and both of these programs have been down a little bit over the last few years. And so this is an opportunity. I know you got to lay points with Kansas to do it, but I do think they finally have an opportunity to beat their in-state rival. Of course, we've been saying that for the last 15 years, I think you said, Mark.
15 in a row, yes. Right.
Yeah, and so at some point, This is, again, you kind of ask yourself, given the history, and again, these are two rather nondescript programs largely in the grand scope of national, collegiate football. Why is Kansas favored?
Well, Andy, to answer your question a little bit more succinctly, it's been 16 years, more than 6,200 days that the last time Kansas beat Kansas State.
Okay.
Yep. And Andy poses a really good question. Why is Kansas the favorite then? Especially when you think about it, most people thought Kansas State was going to be a better team than Kansas when the season started.
Yeah.
And I still think Kansas State's a better team than Kansas. I don't know. Like, if it was the flip, then all right, okay, you're going to make Kansas the favorite, but it's not. So you got a team that's better than the other team. They've dominated the series, and you're disrespecting them by making them the dog. So, I kind of like I kind of like the way the Wildcats have played since the bye, because they were really disjointed going into the bye. And then they came out of the bye and they blew out Central Florida. They had a really bad luck loss to Baylor. I mean, that was a back and forth situation. They gave up a game-winning field goal at the end of the regulation. And that was on the road. So it was really like a good loss. And then they beat up a good TCU team last week. So I think they played a lot better since the bye. And that's why I think they're the way to go. If you look at Kansas, they really haven't beaten anybody. I think their best win is Fresno State.
Yeah, I mean, they're not doing much for sure. These two teams' stats are sort of kind of almost similar, just a small edge to Kansas, I think, for their play on the field so far this football season. And Greg, we're both big fans of both of these coaches.
Yes.
Kleiman and Leipold. But I think there's a little bit more urgency here for Kansas State, who I'm a little bit surprised is the dog. And we mentioned the 16 years in a row, and that goes to a philosophy of mine. I'll tell you where it comes from. Joe Gavazzi, a good friend of mine.
Joe Gavazzi.
Yes, Joe Gavazzi used to write the Playbook newsletter for us back in the day. We would do all the research and the stuff we handed to Joe.
Yeah, he had his own publication. Did he have Pittsburgh something or other?
Private Players of Pittsburgh. Yes.
Private Players of Pittsburgh, yes.
Yeah. And but anyway, he had a phrase that really I became endeared to. And when you have a situation like this where one team just completely dominates the other football team and suddenly the flip is scripted, now they're the underdog, he calls it a dia situation. DIA, dogs in action, doing it again. Dominating dogs in action, doing it again. And that's exactly what Kansas State dresses up as here, as a dia play this particular week because of their domination in the series and now taking points. So, and I don't ever play against those teams. I don't think that there's nothing that Kansas State warrants to being an underdog in a football game like this. So I'm going to take the points with Kansas State in this game. Greg, where are you going to go here?
By the way, your theory there is sort of related to the fact that what it also demonstrates is that Kansas State out-recruits Kansas year in and year out, which is why they're always better in head-to-head matchups.
Yep. Kansas is always like the at the bottom of the cellar in the Big Eight,
Yeah, there's a little
called the Big Eight back in the day, right?
Yeah. But you're right. It's a one
team
owns basketball.
I was writing this back in the 1980s. I would always call this, I would always call this the toilet bowl because they were always there was so many times in the 1980s they were playing Kansas and Kansas State were playing this game to avoid a winless season.
No
wonder why they settled on the Sunflower showdown.
See now, Greg, if you were really on top of this, when Andy called the toilet bowl, you would have had a flush sound. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I've got that in the system yet. Let me see. Do I have one? No.
You do. You just use it. You just overused it with the Jets this year.
Yeah, I'll have to JETS Jets chant. Yeah, I'll have to get that toilet bowl flush.
There you go.
Okay, that's my next assignment. Yeah, I mean, Kansas State's definitely the play. I thought they were the play at 2. Now they're getting 3.5 in some places. So if that's the case, I jump all over that. I could still lose the game by 3 and cover. Absolutely, I'll take Kansas State.
Given the series history, why wouldn't you just run to the underdog on the money line?
Is it big enough? I guess it depends. What is it? Is it plus 145 maybe or 150?
Price. Probably plus something in that range. Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I agree.
140.
Yeah. Here it's only 135, but you could probably
you'd be playing with 16 years of winnings, although usually as a favorite.
Yeah. I mean,
But
on a
even
straight bet,
even
sure.
if you're laying money, you're still, as long as you're winning the game, you're cashing your ticket.
Sure, yeah.
So
I thought
Greg's
they were
going to take the
underdogs at
points
some
in this
point,
football game. I can clearly see that. Andy, I think, did you say Kansas in this football game, Andy? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I sort of leaned to Kansas. I said that this may be their best opportunity to finally pull an upset playing at home. Not pulling an upset because it's their favorite, but I was surprised. Again, I sometimes you think we hear the word trap games, and you could wonder, is this a trap game? A trap game meaning that the line doesn't look anywhere near like what it should be. In this case, Kansas State being an underdog. And it's really more of a situation of what am I missing that the lines makers are saying to put it into it, and maybe it's purely power ratings.
I think it's what it is, Andy, is power ratings.
Yeah.
The odds maker is largely a power rating sort of a person. And he doesn't deviate a lot from his power ratings, even if there are situations like we're talking about, dominance and history and all those sorts of good things. They'll just stand tall with their power ratings.
Yeah, I mean, because really, when you do, especially in college football, you don't have you don't recruit in the NFL like you recruit in college, and so you are able to gain in colleges huge advantages, edges over certain opponents, and to have that kind of domination over 16 straight seasons, I could 13-3, that's still pretty dominating. 16-0, that's mind-boggling.
Now, if we come back and visit this game in 10 years and it's 26-0.
Oh, well, then shame on everybody for the past 10 years.
Us, right?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, guys, let's go over to our final game. It's our game of the week, and it's a beauty inside the Southeast Conference. Two good quality football teams will each be playing in a major bowl game this year. Now, I know they'll make the playoffs. Right now, they'll make the playoffs. It depends upon if they can keep their ship in order. It's Missouri traveling to Vanderbilt. The Commodores come up shooting big last week against LSU. Missouri, a football team that opened up the season 6 in a row at home, still cranking away. Where do you think this goes, Andy? The Tigers or the Commodores?
Well, I was in the last man standing contest, a smaller one that they have here for college football run by Station Casinos. It's a relatively inexpensive entry fee, and I think they had like 3,300 entries. And I was alive until last week. I was one of the final 47. And I said, boy, I got to take LSU with that defense, plus the 2.5. And, well, I don't regret the play. It just didn't work. I mean, you
going against my Commodores.
Well, and it cost me. I mean, when you looked at that game last week and you took a look at LSU's defense all year against the teams that they had been playing, including that win at Clemson early in the year, I think the most points they had given up in any game this year was 24 to Ole Miss or something like that. So
is that a straight up contest or against the spread contest?
No, it's against the spread. It's against the spread.
Okay.
But,
I'm sorry.
I knew all about Pavia and all that. And by the way, I heard someone, I forget if it was on ESPN or something, called Vanderbilt's win last week. Was it you, Mark? No, it couldn't have been you because you know this stuff. But somebody, I think it was on ESPN, called Vanderbilt's win last week against LSU was the biggest win in program history. They apparently didn't remember Vanderbilt's win at Alabama last week.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, folks. But
short-term memory, Andy, because I did the same thing. I call it their biggest win in history, and I suffered from short-term memory.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it was a very impressive win. Now, keep in mind, of course, they didn't play either of these teams. They didn't play LSU all that often. They did beat Alabama a couple of times since 1969, but not in a long time. Especially
it might have been, Andy. It might have been because of the fact that this year they actually have a chance to do something. And that was such a big win to finally beat LSU and a team as good as LSU, and it keeps them alive.
It's the significance of the win.
Yes, yeah, I think that might, because I'd be surprised if they forgot about the Alabama game, but maybe they did.
Well, I don't know, but
where did they beat Bama, at home or on the road, guys, last year?
Home
at home last year. Yeah, I think it was like 23-point underdog or something like that.
Yep,
and it wasn't a fluke win either. And
that was just everybody thought it was.
And that was just after they had lost as a double-digit favorite to Georgia State, I think, the game before. So they
had beaten Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Yep, and they upset them, and then they got the sandwich loss, or the loss that teams that aren't used to winning those games and they have the big Alabama next, that's what they do. They disrespect and they lose. But they learned their lesson this year.
I remember because I had Georgia State in that game last year. I just couldn't fathom Vanderbilt being that big of a favorite considering the pedigree of the program. But I do like Vanderbilt this week. Clearly, Lee is done tremendous things at Vanderbilt. I mean, the recruiting standards, the academic standards for the football program has been a little relaxed a little bit, but still, you don't make that kind of progress. And of course, they got Pavia from New Mexico State, and Jerry Killen's coach came over, and they've been a very pleasant surprise. And now they're a very good football team. I like both coaches. I like was it Drinkowitz of Missouri. But I think that the win last week against LSU, especially the way they did it, because LSU has a really, really good defense, and Vanderbilt made it look like a high school defense. I mean, they were just doing anything that they wanted to throughout the game, and that was a very legitimate win by Vanderbilt.
You know what I saw there, Andy? Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's won a couple of national championships this century. Yeah,
I was with you on LSU in the football game for a pretty big play, and as I watched the game, what I was deeply disappointed in what it is that I saw was Brian Kelly. And he appeared to have a persona about him that he wasn't playing to win the game. He was coaching not to lose the game.
Yeah.
There was nothing he did offensively that struck fear into the heart of anybody on that Commodore defense.
It almost looked like they took the win for granted going into the game.
Yep, exactly.
Well, their offense is a big disappointment this year. And again, a lot of it has to do with their offensive line. I mean, the offensive line, not only did they lose 4 or 5 starters, I forget, but 4 of them were drafted in the NFL. That tells you that was a talented offensive line, and they had to replace all of them. And that has been a big issue for them this year.
That's a great
point.
Right?
Normally programs like that, when you lose talent to the NFL, you replace it with future talent for the NFL. You know, it may not show up immediately, but no, my play on LSU last week was as a road underdog against a program they historically have dominated, was based more upon that being, I would think, along with Alabama, the 2 best defenses that Vanderbilt would have seen this year.
Oh, sure. I mean, I completely, that's what I saw as well. That was the one thing I was afraid of when I took Vanderbilt was what you just said, Andy. I don't like taking teams. We just talked about it with Kansas State. I don't like taking teams that have been dominated by the other team for the most part, and then they're the favorite. So that was a little bit unusual. But they also had a bye week to prepare. So maybe that helped them too.
LSU or Vanderbilt?
No, Vanderbilt had the week off to prepare for that game.
They didn't play,
and they had lost the Alabama game.
Okay.
No. They had lost the Alabama game, and then they had the week off, and then they prepared for the LSU game. So I thought that had a lot to do with it. I thought they needed to regroup because remember, Pavia turned the ball over twice in the red zone at Alabama, and that's unusual. So they felt that they let the game go. They felt that that should have been a much closer game. They should have been in it for the entire game, and they had the couple turnovers. So.
Well, I'm going to be on the Missouri side of the
both
football
of these
game.
teams, and I like what Missouri has accomplished. But this Vanderbilt team could be something special.
I think they are something special. That's kind of why we're seeing them favored again. To all the credit and everything they've done. But I'm going to dress up and ride with the Tigers in this game, and I know that I'm running onto a train that saw this Tiger team do all their damage largely at home the first 6 weeks of the season, where they were camped out and put up all their stats and statistics and everything and good like that. But they put up some great stats and statistics in doing just that. Great to the point where they're winning their stats an average of 245 net yards per game. There's only 2 other teams in college football that have better stats than that, as I just pointed out. They're also the number 5 team ranked overall in the country in team defense. Much stronger than LSU's defense. Now, and I know, Andy, you can say, yeah, but who is it against and who are they? And here's Vanderbilt, yada, yada, yada. You also have a bit of I think, perhaps maybe, there shouldn't be, but perhaps maybe Vanderbilt come down from that football game against LSU. They've never, ever played well in games after taking on LSU. In fact, I think they've been tragic, 1-9 to the spread, their last 10, doing just that. I just think it's too many. The wrong team might be favored here, is what I'm saying here. I don't know if LSU or Vanderbilt's got 2 in a row in them. They can catch some teams by surprise and do that, like they did Alabama last year, perhaps LSU this year. But I'm going to grab the points with Missouri. Greg, where are you going here?
Well, what's really good about this matchup is not only do we really like the fact that these two programs have had these really good seasons so far, but let's keep in mind now that neither team can afford this loss. I mean, the team that loses this game will not be able to represent the SEC championship game. They'll have 2 losses in the conference. That'll knock them out. So this is a big game for both teams, which should make it even better. I can't imagine this game not going down to the final minute or two. The thing that just feels the reason I feel a little bit more confident with Vanderbilt, besides being behind them all year, but I did say Missouri was another sleeper team this season that I liked a lot. Drinkwitz had a lot to do with it. I'm a big Ahmad Hardy fan, the transfer running back that's having a big season. Prabula was an excellent transfer pickup from Penn State. So there's nothing I don't like about Missouri, but I just like Vanderbilt a little bit better. And I was a little bit disappointed in Missouri last week. They were pretty fortunate to get away with that Auburn game because Auburn kind of just lost another one. Auburn had the lead, just like they've had. They looked like they were going to beat Georgia, and they lost. And the same, it's what they're dealing with right now with Hugh Freeze. But that one looked like Auburn was going to pull it out, but Missouri gut checked, and it was really I was impressed with when they were down by 7 against a really good Auburn defense that they were able to come back in the fourth quarter and tie that game and send it into overtime. And I think that really said a lot about the character and the coaching staff at Missouri. But I was a little bit more impressed with Vanderbilt's win over LSU, and that's why I'm going to ride them again this week.
One nice, neat stat Missouri does bring into the football game, guys, is the last 10 times that they've taken on a team that's coming off a straight-up and point spread win, they've cashed all 10 times in a row. But that's going to put our wraps on the show here for today. It was another great show, great observations. Andy Iskoe in Las Vegas. Thanks so much for all your insight and help, Andy. I'll look forward to visiting with you this weekend as we put our contest picks and selections together, and wish you nothing but the best of luck this week.
Oh, we just lost Andy again. Yeah, Andy's had all sorts of technical difficulties today. So Andy's gone.
Okay, well then
Jim Radica.
Then he'll hear it on the replay of the show. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg, I'm going to let you go. And I want to remind our listeners out there that until next week, once again, this is Mark Lawrence. Remind you to always remember to bet with your head, not over it.